The bloodiest day in Marvel history is in one of my favorite comic books from my childhood, which was Captain America 319. Now, on the cover, it even says, if Cap can't stop Scourge, every villain on this cover will die. I don't want to call them all super villains because they're really not. But spoiler alert, they die. But who is Scourge, or who was Scourge? Well, it's this gentleman right here over my shoulder. Or is it? Because Scourge was a master of disguise. And Scourge was more than one person. And up to this point, Scourge had already killed several supervillains one by one. But that would all change at the bar with no name. So here you see the villains arriving. Some of them are already there, maybe on their third beer or so. And you see that there's a retina scan. So there's some precautions being taken here after all. But eventually the meeting begins. They take roll call. Okay, and you see everyone saying their name. They don't have chairs for everybody. That's unfortunate. They're supervillains. I mean, come on, you deserve a chair at least. But the man at the front, that's the organizer of this meeting, Gary Gilbert, aka Firebrand. Okay? And as he speaks about the situation here, about previous victims of Scourge, pay close attention to the bartender just to the right behind Mr. Gilbert, because soon enough, this happens. And so-called justice is served. 18 dead. Remember, this is a Captain America issue, so eventually Cap arrives, but he's too late. And he's accompanied by the Weather Wizard, a villain who was supposed to have been there. But you see here wearing purple thigh-high boots. Maybe there should have been 19 that day. But anyways, 18 villains died, and we're going to take a look at each of them in this and give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whether maybe they had some potential. Maybe they were pretty cool characters that didn't deserve to die, or maybe their gimmick should live on. But maybe there's others of the 18 that are better off dead, right? So we're going to look at each of them, and this is Character Assassination, where we look at death in comics. So let's get started. Firebrand, aka Gary Gilbert. I like Firebrand a lot. I think this is a great character. I love his costume. I think it's fire. Firebrand's got a fire costume. He's got an inverse almost of Iron Man's color patterns. He's got a great logo. I like the name Firebrand. And even on these classic Iron Man covers, in each of these, he's given Iron Man the business. You know, he's being presented here as a major threat. And just the art and the composition of these covers really just, I think puts a legacy on Firebrand. So I like this character. I just hate that he died wearing a suit and tie. And as you can see here, he just gets taken out wearing a clip-on or something, man. You had a great costume and you go out like that. But either way, I give Firebrand a thumbs up, whether it's Gary Gilbert or any of the successors to carry on the name. I like the Firebrand brand, as you can say, and he gets a thumbs up from me. Commander Kraken, one of the bigger names on Scourge's kill list at the bar with no name. A pretty, a villain that actually debuted against Submariner. And you can see he seemed like a pretty big time guy. He actually had a Kraken to release. And even the way he spoke was that of a megalomaniacal villain who thought he could rule the seas. And even look at him. He's got a goblet in one hand, and he's got claws on his left, which seems to be a missing hand. Now you see though, when he came back years later to fight Iron Man, he seemed like a totally different person. But you can still see he was a cover level villain against some high level opponents. But you can see here even he says, "I've changed a mite since I last saw the world, lost a leg and gained a hand, you might say." Well, no doubt, and even the way he spoke, he starts talking more like a stereotypical R matey type pirate, as you can see here, with his rocket boosted peg leg. How about that, man? But this man had resources. He had submarines, he had, ships, he had henchmen, he had Krakens at his disposal. I give him a thumbs up. I think there's not enough pirate themed villains, and he was a pretty big time one. So I think there was a little bit more. And too bad he died at this bar with all these other fools. Vamp, aka Denise Barringer. She got that librarian look going on, with the bun in her hair. She got that green blouse wide open, letting it all hang out. She debuted as a Shield super agent, actually, later revealing herself to be the monstrous Animus, doing battle with Captain America and also laying waste to the Incredible Hulk at one point. This Animus also seems to materialize a club out of nowhere. So Denise, the old bait and switch, huh? Well, anyways, despite that, I give Vamp a thumbs up. I think maybe she deserved to live. I think there's some potential there, Denise. So this is a 2-in-1. Okay, I'm going to talk about El Jaguar and Cheetah. All right, they're both cat-themed villains, and they're both Latino. So let's just take care of both of them at the same time. So El Jaguar was a Hydra agent who had fought Daredevil and Black Widow at some point. But look, man, he's shirtless. He goes around shirtless. His real name is Ramon de Rico, right? Ramon de Rico. But he's coming off more like Rico Suave here. Remember Gerardo from back in the day? Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting from El Jaguar. So, man, Jaguars are cool animals, cool, powerful animals. And you're wasting it, Ramon. So move on out of here. Now, Cheetah, his real name was Esteban Caracas. Esteban Caracas. All right? He looks ridiculous. Absolutely. This is one of the worst costumes and looks I've seen of maybe any character. He somehow fought Captain Marvel. That makes no sense to me. I don't know how those two would fight each other. And one thing that often bothered me about the way comic book writers portrayed people that didn't grow up speaking English is that they would just speak super formal, flowery, but perfect English, just like Esteban does right here when he's, talking about himself, grandstanding and whatnot. But, cheetahs are cool animals. And even DC's Cheetah is a silly character, arguably better than Marvel's, and that's pathetic. All right? So both of these guys get a thumbs down, okay? El Jaguar and Cheetah. But there should be other Jaguars and other Cheetahs, just not them. Birdman. All right. Well, Birdman was one of the Ani-Men, a group consisting of Ape-Man, Frogman, and Catman, foes of Daredevil back in the day. But Birdman, how vague can you get? That's like calling yourself Mammal Man. Like, which bird are you talking about? That's a pretty important detail, right? To me, he always looked mostly like a rooster. He may as well have just embraced that and called himself Rooster Man. I would have respected him more. And of course, there's the other Birdman cartoon, the Hanna-Barbera, from back in the 60s. And then, of course, remember the Hot Boys, Birdman, the number one stunner. Put some respect on his name. But Birdman's real name is Achille Debaco. Achille Debaco. And now that's got to be a real name that one of the Marvel writers grew up with, plucked from their memory. You can't make up a name like Achille Debaco. But that's just about the coolest thing about Birdman. He's replaceable. All right. So thumbs down, Birdman. You out of here, man. Turner D Century, arguably the most ridiculous victim on this list. But you know what? He's an interesting character in his own way. But look at him crashing through on a bicycle in his. And by the way, he fought Spider Woman back in the day. Here saying, "Back, defilers of innocence, make way for Turner D Century." And on his flying bicycle, look at what he says here: "Perverts, living slime." We never had to bear such shameful pursuits in my day. And then he goes, living slime. Wow. And then in the next panel, can't you find happiness in a Sunday picnic or a friendly game of touch football on the front lawn? And he goes on and on with his flaming umbrella. This character, wow. This character is probably racist as hell. Okay, Turner D Century. He looks like he's from a barbershop quartet. But you know what? In the end, I think this guy's pretty interesting. I don't know. He makes me laugh, and I think there's things you could do with a character like this. So in the end, I think there's a reason to keep him around. So I give him a thumbs up. Turner D Century lives. The Mirage. A Spider-Man foe who had crashed Ned Leeds' wedding in his debut on this cover right here. The Mirage gave Spider-Man some fits, gave him a bit of trouble here, and Mirage has thugs that came along with him, I like the Mirage's outfit. I like the yellow. There's not a lot of yellow foes for Spider-Man, and he's got them isosceles triangles on the side of his head. That's an interesting. Who has the guts to do that? Have two isosceles triangles on the side of his head. But let me tell you, Mirage's real name is Desmond Charn, which to me sounds very West Indian. Sounds like it's from the Caribbean, maybe Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad, or something. So I always imagine, Desmond Charn. Desmond. Vida Chan, her son Desmond. Desmond is the Mirage. He fights Spider-Man. So hey, any Desmond that I've ever met has been from the West Indies. So that's what I think of when I hear of Mirage. So maybe that's an idea if they want to reboot him, but a lot of people get mad about that, I think. But Mirage, I give you a thumbs up. I give him a thumbs up. I think there's more there. And Spider-Man needs more yellow enemies. Cyclone. This is a French Spider-Man foe. This man kidnapped Robbie Robertson's son, and Spider-Man had to travel to Paris, France, to save him. His real name is André Gérard, and you see he has powers, kind of more even like a tornado. I mean, spinning his body around, doing those kind of things, as you can imagine. Pretty generic costume overall, and you can see that he absolutely hates Americans, accusing Americans of interfering in everything. Hey, I'm not American, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But, Andre, hey, what you got to say? And when he arrives at the bar with no name for, on that fateful night, he's saying to the waiter, as you can see here, Garçon, et Chateau Lafite Rothschild 29, please. This is a dingy dive bar, dude. I don't know what he's thinking at this place. And also, look at the swirls on his costume. He's got a big giant swirl on his chest, and he's got another swirl on his belt. I feel bad for the artist who had to draw him in every panel. It's hard enough doing one of those, let alone two. But André Gérard, I don't know why you'd put that on your Cyclone costume. You almost made the cut, Cyclone, but because of the swirls and the Chateau Lafite, I think that Cyclone deserved to be out of there. Sorry. Entering the ring at this time, this is Letha. Letha, right? Yeah, Letha was a super-powered wrestler. In unlimited class wrestling. She'd done battle with the Thing a few times and the Dazzler to a lesser extent. Interesting outfit for Letha. She got that stainless steel brassiere going on, and that pose with the arched back. She knows she's working it. Letha's real name is Helen Feliciano. Helen Feliciano, which sounds kind of like the head of the neighborhood watch, Helen Feliciano, always by a window with a phone in her hand. Um, you know, uh, I don't know. Anyways, that's her name, Helen Feliciano. And in this panel, you can see Mirage is asking her about going legit. She's no longer a crook. And look at her motivation and what she says. I'm here with you lowlifes because this creepy killer offed a friend of mine. And that friend of hers, it was Titania, who was murdered just not that long before in an issue of The Thing. And here's Titania on the left, along with other members of the Grapplers, a group with Screamin' Mimi and Pound Cakes, one of the more uniquely named female characters of all time. Great name, Pound Cakes. But Helen Feliciano, aka Letha, I give you a thumbs up. I think that there's room for a character like this. I like Letha. I wish she had survived. Too bad Scourge found ya. The Grappler. Yeah, a character I couldn't even try to care less about, but I'm gonna try. This guy looks funny as hell. He's got a weird costume. He fought She-Hulk somehow. When I first heard the name, I thought he was some kind of super-powered wrestler like the female group of Titania, Screamin' Mimi, Pound Cakes, and Letha, but instead we get this guy who probably can just get away from danger or action pretty quickly. There's really nothing about this character worth keeping or worth talking about. That's a very easy thumbs down. Grappler is gone. Scourge, thank you. Steeplejack. Now, this Steeplejack we're talking about is actually the second version of him. The first version was a man named Jake Mallard who fought against Luke Cage. I love this cover, by the way. This is dope. And he was shooting hot rivets at Luke Cage to have him worried enough. But the second Steeplejack was actually the man that Jake Mallard wanted to kill, a mogul by the name of Maxwell Plum. Different outfit, got the green with the orange and still with a hard hat. And here he is doing battle with Ms. Marvel, high-powered character. That's no joke at all. And here he is ripping a car door, ripping the car apart. And in this panel, you can see Ms. Marvel starting to figure out this is a different dude. And what she's saying, he's wearing a padded costume. It can only be to disguise a much slimmer man. And he sounds too well educated. And she's calling out Jake Mallard's education. By the way, he's the dead man at this point, so she's disrespecting the dead. But anyways, Maxwell Plum in this ends up at the bar with no name and loses his life. But I like Steeplejack. I like his look, and a construction-themed character. Why not? Mindwave. Interesting costume. I don't know what's going on with the man's helmet. I know it's probably some contraption that lets him read people's minds and all that, but it doesn't need to look as silly as all that with a big M on his chest. He has something called a think tank, mind-controlled tank. And even when he fights and he gets the best of Daredevil in these panels, because he's able to think steps ahead of Daredevil and know what Daredevil is thinking. Unbelievable. And then on the cover itself, you see here, it's not even Daredevil that he's mostly worried about. It's this man at the bottom named Uri Geller, who was a big star back in the 1970s and 80s. A magician famous for being able to bend spoons and forks with his mind, or so he said. Later exposed as a total charlatan by this man right here. the so-called amazing James Randi. So basically, Mindwave was stopped by Uri Geller in this Daredevil issue, and Uri Geller was stopped by this old man. So what does that tell you about Mindwave? In Mindwave, he looks like a GI Joe foe. He looks like he should be in Cobra or something. I don't know, man. You had potential somewhere there, but the generic name, the stupid helmet, and being outclassed by a phony magician. Mindwave, you get the thumbs down, and Scourge might have done us all a favor by getting rid of Mindwave. The Hijacker. All right. Interesting mask. I'll say this about the Hijacker, but there's really not much else to say. His name is Howard Mitchell. He used to own an armored car company before turning to a life of crime. Here he is in a super tank, about to run down the Thing in Black Goliath. I guess that's something, but you know that he did not succeed for sure. But the Hijacker, with the name Hijacker, aren't you kind of pigeonholing yourself, limiting your prospects as far as what kind of life of crime you can live right there? So he loses a lot of points just based on that. Hijacker, I guess there's no big loss with the life of him. Although I do like the welding mask, but it doesn't need to belong to Howard Mitchell anymore. Goodbye, courtesy of Scourge. Shellshock. Yeah, one of the lesser known villains who died at the bar with no name. A character actually I found more interesting than I expected. He originally looked like this back in the 60s, drawn by Jack Kirby. And this man's real name is Gary Buser. Take a look at his face. That kind of looks a bit like Gary Busey to me, but that's before Gary Busey was the star, so maybe this is inspiration in some way. I don't know. But then he reappears several years later to fight the Thing by trying to steal some statues from Alicia Masters, the Thing's girlfriend. And Gary here and his partner Livewire were dressed up as movers, furniture movers. So they were driving a moving van and everything, trying to outwit the Thing and his blind girlfriend. That's an interesting scheme. But then when he comes back years later, he wants to attack the Thing while the Thing is in the hospital, recuperating. And take a look at this as he comes back with a brand new look, brand new costume. I hope the Thing recognizes me before I beat his face into an orange omelet. I love that line, and my whole opinion of Shellshock turned around from that line. And then later, you see him explaining his costume change. He redesigned everything. And then he's testing out his weapons, just bragging about his weaponry. And in the end, with this weapon, I'm practically invincible. Now, you don't want to go ahead and say that, though. That's usually an omen of bad things to come for a supervillain. And lo and behold, in the next scene, he turns around to get absolutely clocked by Ant-Man out of nowhere. Okay? Not a good look, of course. And then in the next part of this little battle between the two, Ant-Man calls in Little Ant to just rush Shellshock's costume and get all up in there. And you can see Shellshock just got nothing left, and he runs away in shame through the alleyway. I can't even blame Shellshock for bailing out of the fight like that. I get it. This guy's a low-rent villain. I think there's a place for characters like this in comics at all times. I enjoyed this guy. I even kind of like his look. That cockroach-looking mask he's got, the bright yellow and blue. He's very distinctive. The name isn't bad. He talks kind of funny in some of these panels, but I like Shellshock. I'm going to give him a thumbs up, and I did not expect that at all. Hellrazor. And we're not talking about the horror movie franchise with that pinhead. No, this guy's Denton Phelps. He looks pretty silly. Okay? The name isn't that bad, I guess, but he looks stupid. Okay, and he debuted fighting Black Panther and Spider-Man. And in this issue where he fought, he's talking about, I'm completely kinetosynthetic, basically saying that he never gets tired. Okay, and then he's got these razor blades that he fires. He thinks he's completely unbeatable. Never talk like that if you're a villain. And then you see he actually fires these razors and gets Spider-Man in the stomach and thinks he's killed him. Straight up thinks he's murdered him. But Spidey got webbing on his stomach, straight up tricked him, removed his gauntlets in the meantime, and Hellrazor is helpless. And you see at the end of this fight, he says, "Hold it, I'll stop fighting. I can't beat both you and the Panther without my blades. Hey, aren't you going to read me my rights?" And then Black Panther just lays him out. Not a good look, Hellrazor. So years later, when he ends up at the bar with no name, look at what he's saying here, sitting down, having a beer. How embarrassing. No one's even heard of me. Sorry, Hellrazor. Might be, your costume looks ridiculous. You got the shoulder pads that could rival the designing women of television fame, like Delta Burke. Hellrazor's got very little in terms of redeeming qualities. That's an easy thumbs down for me. Sorry, Hellrazor. Get the hell out of here. The Ringer. Okay, let's see if I can muster any enthusiasm to talk about this man. His real name is Anthony Davis. Not to be confused with the real Anthony Davis, shown here posing with his championship ring with LeBron James. The Ringer here is covered in mini hula hoops, which is his primary form of battle and combat. You see here, fighting with Spider-Man. I don't see how Spider-Man could ever have problems with this man. Just don't duck. Don't let him get a good hoop over your whole body. I don't see why Spider-Man would have any issue dodging these rings. But at the bar with no name years later, you can see here on the left, Ringer is saying, "Wow, are there ever a lot of big timers here tonight, Ringer? You're running with the fast crowd now." Well, Ringer has some pretty low standards because, man, there were a lot of bottom-of-the-barrel criminals at this event. But anyways, Ringer, not much to say about you. That's an easy thumbs down, or maybe ring finger down, I should say. Bye-bye, Ringer. The Rapier. Not so much a criminal, more like a overbearing vigilante. With a fairly unfortunate name, for people who might not know what it actually means, which is referring to this type of sword that he uses. Listen, no other character changed my opinion as much as this man did. At first, I just thought he was some cheap Zorro ripoff, but when I read about him, he was actually a vigilante motivated by quite a bit. He talks all fancy, all highfalutin and all that, but when he reveals his origin, I actually found it to be quite compelling. You see here, the Rapier was a man named Dominic Tyrone, who was actually a former mobster. This man was a gangster. You see, he used to roll with Silvermane of Magia fame, Marvel's stand-in for the Mafia. So he was partners with Silvermane. You see in this panel, he's just mowing his opponents down with a Tommy gun with Silvermane. But Silvermane ends up betraying him, gets him thrown into a lake, okay, and while he's drowning, this woman named Clarissa dives in and saves him, ends up going to hospital, saving his life in surgery, spending a long time recuperating after being told that he would never walk again, okay? This is inspiring stuff, man. Love brought him out of that bedridden existence. So his recovery went even further, weightlifting, calisthenics, fencing, until he became a master of it. And then at some point, Clarissa, his wife, father dies, and this grief fuels him to become the Rapier. All right, and he's motivated to put away the Magia and take them all out. Come on, that's pretty. He had a montage. How many supervillains in this list of the at the bar with no name? How many of these victims actually would have deserved a montage? He deserves a film. That's a movie right there about the Rapier. Maybe Sylvester Stallone would play. I don't know. Remember, actually, this whole origin started 30 years before. So that means that Rapier's got to be about 60 years old or so. He's got white hair on the top. So I don't know. Get Sylvester Stallone involved. But at some point, he is going overboard trying to get his revenge on Silvermane, and Spider-Man steps in. So they get into a duel. He slices off his web shooters, okay? And then followed by probably the wordiest panel I've ever seen in a battle. Take a look at this. We can't even read that. Don't nobody have time for that. That's a quote from Sweet Brown, if you remember her. Don't nobody got time for that. So in this battle, Spider-Man, holding a rapier of his own, ends up getting bopped on the head by Clarissa, the rapier's woman. And that ends up ending the fight. But take a look at what the rapier says here. You little meddler, do you realize what you've done? And then I only did it because I love you. And listen to what he says. Bah, how could you be with me for so long and not realize I cannot win this way? And then so on. I'm going to have to begin again without your ruinous interference. And when I return home, I expect you to be gone. Goodbye, Clarissa. That's cold-blooded, man. That is cold-blooded, Rapier. Okay? And then while all that's going on, Silvermane pulls out a gat, and Rapier, trying to get away, ends up catching a slug in his back. Okay? He betrayed again by the same man. And then as you see here, as he actually makes his escape, take a look at this last panel. Okay, everything getting numb, difficult to walk, but I will. I'll make it somehow. I always have, even with the pain. But I won't crawl. Man, that's dope. I don't care. I didn't come in thinking I would like the Rapier. He was a former mobster. He talks more like the Scarlet Pimpernel. I mean, that's weird. He's got his costume isn't all that cool or anything, but his story is actually pretty compelling. And this was really his only appearance before he ended up at the bar with no name, catching another slug that put him down for good. So Rapier, I think you deserve better, man. And you get a thumbs up from me. So there you have it. The bloodiest day in Marvel history. The biggest mass murder they've ever had. Do you agree or disagree about these 18 and who could have survived, should have survived, or who was better off dead? Write your comments below. It's all good. You get a thumbs up. All of y'all for sticking through this. You deserve to live. All right. Congratulations for making it to the end. Why not go get yourself some refreshment? Go get yourself a Coke and a Twix. Enjoy yourself. And remember, Scourge of the Underworld had more victims. So we aren't finished, but we are for now. Pop Culture Cosmonaut, signing off.